I can't help but notice that a lot of people really struggle to trigger a Power Automate flow from within a Canvas app they created. Well, if you think that you are one of those people, or if you're just interested in Power Apps in general, this video is for you. Hey everyone, my name is Jochen. I am a Power Platform consultant at Cegeka. And you might have seen me in a previous series on this channel where I did more of a beginner level deep dive into creating a Canvas app. I will leave a link to that playlist in the video description, but that is not really what's on the menu today. This video is part of the Hyperautomation series that we are doing, in which we combine all kinds of different tools within the Power Platform to create one big and awesome, might I add, support ticket system. Now, if you have no idea what hyperautomation is and you want to learn more, or if you want to follow from the very beginning of the series, which I can only highly recommend, I'll also drop a link to this playlist in the video description. And next to that, you will also find another link to the Cegeka website where the concept, if you will, of hyperautomation is somewhat more explained. If you really don't care about all of that and you are just here to learn about Power Apps, I will briefly show you what you need to follow along with this video, but as always, let's first have a look at our use case. Because yes, today is the day that we implement our mighty friend Power Apps into our Hyperautomation support ticket solution. We will build a Canvas app for our call agents and our engineers to use when creating or updating their support tickets. Next to creating the actual app, we will also develop a Power Automate flow to trigger directly from within the app. And as the final piece of today's puzzle, we are going to create a model-driven app for our administrator user to have a quick and easy overview of all the tickets and their data. Sounds fun? I would agree. Let's go. A quick heads up to start with here. Since we are going to use Dataverse and model-driven apps, you will need a premium Power Apps license to follow along. Now, if you want to set up a demo playground tenant just like I did in episode 1, you can find a downloadable link in the video description with all the steps and the files that you will need. Or of course, start the playlist from episode 1 because everything you will see in a minute we already have set up in those previous videos. So today's data is both on SharePoint and Dataverse. So let's start with SharePoint. These are the two lists that we created in episode number 1, the first being currency exchange rates. A very simple list. We have currency and name as two normal text fields, and then we have two number fields, unit per euro and euro per unit. We will use this list in our app to do some automatic calculations later. The second list on SharePoint is user roles, and this is also super simple. I just renamed the default title column to email, which is obviously filled with the email of the user, and then I implemented a simple choice field called role, with a couple of options: administrator, engineer, and call agent. Then let's quickly jump to Dataverse, and let me first get into the environment we also created in that first episode, Hyperautomation Heroes. And in this environment, I'm going to go to Solutions and then Ticket Hub. This is everything we have done so far. And the Dataverse tables are right here. And we are going to use all three of them. So this is the customer table. I will show some details on screen now, should you have not seen those first episodes. But again, I highly recommend, if you want to follow along, start from the beginning. So the customer table, then we have a very simple region assignment table, and we are going to use this one to automatically assign tickets to a certain engineer based on which region the ticket is in. And of course, we will also have the ticket table, which is probably the most important one because the data that we create from within our Power App will actually be saved, hopefully at least, in this ticket table. And that is all for our data sources. Now, I absolutely know that there are other and better ways to set up some of this data. For example, I could have used a person column here on SharePoint instead of just the raw text from the email. I know that. But as always, I just want to keep things as simple as possible. And I'm trying to do that by focusing on the use case and the actual automation instead of adding extra complexity along the way in the data sources and stuff like that. I will also use a bunch of users on my tenant, which I will also show on screen. And again, for more info on that, check the first episode or the links that I mentioned earlier. And with that, we are ready to build some apps. And let's start today's development with the Canvas app. The end goal here is to have an app that our call agents and our engineers can log into. And by using all of those different data sources that I just showed you, we are of course going to try and do some automated calculations and stuff like that for them to make their life easier. So let's go back to make.powerapps.com. I am already in the correct environment and in my solution, but I'm going to click all just to have a little overview. And in here, I'm going to click New App, Canvas App. And all this needs is a name and a format, which we will leave at tablet. And I'm just going to use the prefix that I have used all along, HA_support ticket app. Again, leave this at tablet and just click Create. And here we are, Power Apps Studio. I'm just going to skip all of those pop-ups that you might get. I'm also going to get rid of this annoying thing. There we go. I'm not going to try Copilot. Thank you. And this is our starting point as far as development goes within Canvas apps. Now, I am just going to do a couple of things here, and then we'll jump briefly out of Canvas apps to create the Power Automate flow, and then we'll go back into the editor to finish off the app. So a couple of immediate things that I want to do first. I want to link our data sources, and you can do that by going to this icon on the left here and then click Add Data. And let's just start with Dataverse. If I type in HA_, and I can already see now the 3 Dataverse tables that I want. And I'm just going to click each one of them one by one. So let's start with customers. And once that is loaded, there we go. Now I can click Add Data, click HA again, and then Region Assignments, Add Data, HA Tickets. Now let's go for SharePoint, Add Data, SharePoint. This is the one that we want. Click. If you see anything here selected, it's just a connection that you have to use. I'm going to say add a connection because I think this is the screen most of you will see. And then just leave this at the first option and then click Connect. And I can already now see my SharePoint site. If you can't see this, you will have to paste your site's URL in here and then click Connect. It should also get you to this same screen because we've selected the site, and now Power Apps wants us to select the lists. And that will be currency exchange rates and user roles. Please connect. And there we go. For each one of these 5 data connections, I now get this notification. I'm just going to close all of those. There we go. So data, check. Now let's just upload an image that we will use as the background image for our screens. Also very simple, hover over the 3 dots and then click Media. And just like we added the data sources, we can now add Media Upload. And now you can upload whatever file you want. If you want the same as me, this one, background, you will find this in the episode 3 folder in the downloadable link that you find in the video description. So select the file you want and then click Open. And now I'm going to do a quick preparation of the 3 screens that we eventually are going to use in our app. So let's go back to our tree view now. I'm just going to rename screen 1 by double clicking on it to home screen. Then, while home screen is selected, go to the properties on the right side here and set the background image from none to background, which is that file that I literally just uploaded. And to get rid of these white borders, I'm just going to go from fit here to fill. There we go. Background done. The next thing I'm going to do is add a little icon here that will lead us back to the home screen so we can easily copy paste this to other screens as well. So while you are on this screen, insert, type in home, and from the icons submenu, click home. And let's make this a little bit bigger, something like that. And you can change the color of this if you want to. An easy way to do that is if you select home screen or the app node here, go to theme and then select anything here that you like. I can go for light, for example, and this will turn that home icon automatically into some kind of gray. And you can even scroll down for more color schemes. So pick the one that you like. I'm going to go for light here and then click theme again to fold back that menu. And the most important thing for an icon, if you still have it selected, you can see that it has a onSelect property. This property defines what has to happen when the user clicks it. And we are just going to say navigate and let this suggestion drop down help you by clicking, for example, here, navigate. This will automatically make sure your spelling is correct because it is super sensitive syntax. This just needs the screen name, which will be home screen, automatically adds those single quotes around it, and then just close the bracket so you don't see any more errors on your screen. A good best practice is to always check this little thing here. If this has a red dot, there is in fact an error. You can click it here and then go to the error that it's indicating in one of these submenus. But I am all good, so I'm going to click this properties icon again to have my properties pane back. Now with this formula set, we are going to duplicate this screen 2 times. Right click, duplicate screen, right click, duplicate screen. And we're just going to change the name of this screen to new ticket screen. And this one will be my tickets screen. So you already have an idea on what the purpose will be of these 2 screens. For now, we're just going to leave him, so we're going to go back to the home screen. Because what we are going to do first is have a look at how we can link this data source on SharePoint to our actual app functionality. Meaning we want to determine who is logging in and what then their role is. And this will manifest in, for example, which buttons they can click. But we have to capture the data first, so let's do that. Go to the app node on your tree view. And while we are here, let's also set the start screen property. So make sure start screen is selected on the top left here and set this to home screen. Also a very important property, don't forget that. This is literally saying when the app is launched, this is the starting screen, the landing page, if you will, for every user that opens up the app. But then go to on start, which is another property, and this is used for whatever code we put here will be executed when the app actually starts. And this is where we want to use that list on SharePoint to determine what the role is of the user that is actually logging into the app. And we are just going to set a variable for that. So use the set function and then give the variable a name var user role, for example, comma. And what is the value that we want to give to this variable? Well, then we have to do a lookup function into this data source on SharePoint. So lookup, that is the function. Make sure you have all of this spelling correct, including capital letters, because again, it is super sensitive. In here, it needs the name of the data source, which is user roles. That's the name of our data source. You can always double check that by going to this menu and seeing it right here. Back to the tree view. In the formula, lookup in the user roles, comma, and what is the actual condition that we want to use to do that lookup? Well, we want to check if the user's email address is in this column, right? That's what we want to check. So we want to see if email equals the logged in user, which we can access by doing this function, dot email. This is the lookup that we want to do, so close the brackets. And this is wrong, of course. This should be a equals character. If this is the lookup, dot role dot value, because that is the actual value that we want to put inside of this variable, right? Close the brackets, and normally you shouldn't have any errors now. Because by doing it like this, since it is a choice field on SharePoint, we have to do it like this. This will give us the actual text value, if you will, of these options here. And we can immediately test it, because if I now double click var user role, you can see that it is still blank since we haven't triggered this code yet. But if I right click my app node here and then say run on start, this executes the code that we have just put in. And if I double click var user role now, you can see that in my case, it has jumped to administrator because I am currently logged in with that admin user.jochen. As you can see right here, it is in the table, or in the SharePoint list, I should say, and it has the role administrator. If I just to show you double click this and I change my role to engineer, for example, right? This is now changed. I go back to my app and I do the same thing again, right click, run on start. You will see that var user role is now engineer because it re-executed this code. And let's just for now change this back, of course, to administrator. All right, the next thing we want to do on the home screen is add a label, just a greeting label, if you will. So make sure you have the home screen selected, insert text label, and instead of text in the text property, maybe let's first reposition it somewhat like this, and then say in the double quotes, welcome, comma, And then let's just copy paste this label by selecting it, Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and move it somewhat down. And here we don't want to see welcome, we want to see the user's name. And we can do that by using that same user formula dot full name. And in my case, again, I am logged in with admin user as this is still open. And all I really want to do is make this a little bit bigger and give the font size, I don't know, 20. And maybe put this in bold. Make this a little smaller and then move it down somewhat like this. You get the idea, just a little greeting. This can even be more. Let's go font size 30. There we go. And let's also get this one to 20. Perfect. And then on the right side of this home screen, I just want two buttons basically to navigate to my two other screens. So while still on the home screen, insert button, which is right here. Move this to somewhat like this probably. Let's give it some rounded corners by going to the border radius and setting that to 100. There we go. Can be a little bit bigger even like that. And this first button, if I just double click it, I can edit the text. This will be create new ticket. And let's just copy paste it. Copy, Ctrl C, Ctrl V, paste, and move it down somewhat like this. Double click, and this will be view my tickets. And all we have to do is again tell the app what has to happen when this button is clicked. So select the top button first, unselect property here on the top left, and then say instead of false, navigate to, in this case, the new ticket screen, close the brackets. And this one, super similar, unselect property. This will be navigate to the My Tickets screen, close the brackets. And of course, you can reposition these things however you would like. You can multi-select by holding down Control or Shift and then drag this around. I mean, do the alignment yourself, make it pretty. I am more concerned about if this actually works. And we can just test it by clicking this little arrow. But first, let's save our app for the first time by clicking this little disk. The first time you save it, your app will be created, saved, and automatically published as well. So it might take somewhat longer, just wait until this saving animation is done. There we go, all changes are saved, and now I can click the icon next to it just to test everything. So let's start from the home screen here, play. If I click this, nothing happens because we already are on the home screen, I know, but if I go to another screen by clicking one of these buttons, for example this one, this is now my new ticket screen. Right? You can't really see it, but the labels and the buttons are gone, so it is definitely another screen at least. And then click home, and nothing happens. And I have had this before that the code on the icon was not really... There we go. It was copied, but for some reason it changed it. Instead of saying navigate to the home screen, it said navigate to the new ticket screen. Of course, this is not correct. So make sure that on your other screens, you set the navigate code on the onSelect property of the icon to the home screen. So this is okay for the new ticket screen now, and let's go to My Tickets screen and check. There we go. Here it also changed it. So change this to home screen. Close brackets. And now if I start again from the home screen by clicking it and preview the app, now this should work, and it does. Perfect. Let's exit preview mode again, lose these pop-ups. This was phase one of creating the app, right? We've created some navigational buttons and stuff like that. It all works. But now before we do any more development in here, let's first focus on the Power Automate that we want to eventually trigger from this app. So I'm just going to save my app again. I don't really want to publish for now. That's okay. But what I do want to do is go back to my solution. And for the love of God, do not use the browser arrows while you are working in Power Apps, because that might give you some ugly saving conflicts, and we don't want that. We just want to close off properly, and the only way to do that is by clicking the back button here in the actual Power Apps Studio. So click back and then say leave. And even now I get some weird pop-ups. Sometimes you might get this, but just click leave for now, and this should get you back to the solution, which it also doesn't do for me. So I don't know what is going on, to be honest. But if I go to solution now and go back to my ticket hub and I click apps, There we go. My HA_support ticket app is now part of my solution. And in here, of course, we can just say new automation Cloudflow instant is what we need here. As a trigger, we want this one when Power Apps calls a flow v2. That's just the newest version of this. And as a name, I am again going to use the HA prefix and say new ticket send email flow, because that's exactly what should happen once this is all up and running. Create. And this is going to be pretty simple because all that we really want to do, if I click open this trigger, we can add inputs here that we can then pass from our app while we call this flow. And all we really want to do here is to send an email to the engineer when a new ticket was created and assigned to them. So we are just going to add a couple of inputs. The first one will be a text type input and call this engineer email. You can leave the description like this. You can fill it out if you want to. I'm just going to ignore it. Then add an input again, text. This will be the customer name. Add an input, text. The third one will be ticket description. And the last one, again, add an input, text, ticket number. That's it. Those are the 4 inputs that we want to pass from our app to this flow when we call it. Then we can say new step and type in send email. And we need send an email v2. You might get a little loading screen here that it's creating your connection reference. Perfectly normal. It should jump eventually to this. And let's keep this pretty simple. To whom do we want to send the email? Well, that is our input parameter, if you will, engineer email. So if I click in the to field and then click the blue text, add dynamic content, this field is the one that I need. So just click it and it should appear like this. What is the subject? Well, new ticket assigned to you or something like that. And now we can just build the email body. Hi, a new ticket was assigned to you. And let's just add some metadata here. Customer name, ticket number, ticket description, We'll fill that in a minute. And then kind regards, the Hyperautomation team. And what you could say as well is please use the support ticket app to view the ticket. You could add in a hyperlink to the app if you really want to, but that's kind of out of scope for this video. Now we want to add the 3 other input parameters in this email body. Let's start with customer name. So add a space here after the colon and then just click customer name like that. Ticket number, add a space and then click ticket number. Ticket description, add a space and click ticket description. If you don't see this window, by the way, you probably have to click that blue text here, add dynamic content. But then if you see it in this case, ticket description is what I need. And I could just make this bold, for example. So if I select all of that and then just click bold here, normally it should be in bold when we actually see the email coming in. And maybe what we could also do, if I show advanced options here and scroll down, I could set the importance from normal, which is the default value, to high. Super simple use case, guys, I know, but I think it is very much scalable to whatever similar stuff you want to do in your own business process. So maybe now let's just save our flow for starters. And once this indicator jumps to saved, again, might take a little while because it's now actually creating the flow. There we go. I am now just going to scroll up and fold this one by clicking on the bar. And then as a final step, I want to answer back to the app saying, yep, everything is fine. The email was sent, because that is very valuable information to have, of course. So new step and type in respond. And this one here, respond to a Power App or flow. Click that. And all I'm going to do is add a simple output text called success. And I'm gonna set this to the value of true. And there are other ways to do this, but this is just as simple as I can possibly keep it. So only if send an email is successful, otherwise the flow will go into an error. But if it is successful, this action will be reached and we will respond to our app with a success output parameter that simply has the value of true in it. So click save again and then we are done with this flow. And we can immediately test it by doing a little test on the top right here. And then say manually and say test. It will sign us in the Outlook connector, which is good. Continue. And now we can just enter some dummy data and let's just send this test email to ourselves. So I'm going to put in my admin user email address here. Customer name will be test customer. Ticket description, blah, 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 blah. Ticket number, ticket even. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we should now see this info basically in the email body if we get the email. So let's just check it out. Run flow. Done. This is already a good sign. So the email should have been sent. Only one way to find out. If I go to this and then Outlook, there we go. I have an email here with high importance. You can see the little red exclamation point. If I click it, hi, a new ticket was assigned to you. The subject, by the way, is also the one that I put in the flow. We can see that my ticket description is in there. The enters are not really included here, but minor detail. Ticket number is there, test customer. It is in bold as well. So actually everything works. I don't know what triggered here, but I'm just gonna close it. So this all works. Now let's see if we can implement this in our app. In the previous episode, we have set up a customer creation system with AI Builder, Power Automate, good stuff. If you haven't seen it, check that link to the playlist. But now we do want to make an assumption here. And that is that our call agent is notified when a ticket comes in from one of those customers. By phone, email, whatever notification system you prefer, but it will not be a part of our own automation. But if the ticket comes in, they can just open up the app and log the ticket into our system. And let's build that exact functionality now. And to do that, we can just click that little blue arrow to go back to our solution. And here is our app. By the way, if I now click all, I should also see the flow that we just created. There we go. New ticket, send email flow. So good stuff, but we need, of course, our app. So it's easy to just click apps to filter all of this and then click the 3 dots next to your app and say edit. And this will take us back into the Power Apps Studio. So now we're going to shift focus from the home screen to the new ticket screen. So click that in the tree view here on the left. So the only thing I really want on the bottom left here is another button to actually save our data when we want to create a ticket, right? But we'll do that later. On the right side here is where I want my form to enter the data when we want to create a ticket. So I'm going to say insert on top here. Make sure you are on the new ticket screen, by the way, and then insert, edit, form. That is what we want. And we can already select the data source for this form. And that will be HA, in my case at least, underscore tickets. And this will take a little minute, because the form will be automatically filled with some fields. And we'll tackle that in a minute, but we are just going to reposition it. Nope, make sure you have the whole form selected and then reposition it somewhat to here. There we go. Now, first of all, let's edit this form, right? Let's set the columns to 1. It's always set to 3 by default for some reason. Let's set it to 1. And some fields on here we don't really need, so click fields on top and we can now choose whatever we want to delete. Description, we want to keep that. Ticket number, this will be automatically assigned by Dataverse. That's how we programmed it in the first episode. So I'm going to say ticket number, I don't need this, remove. Engineer assigned to, we actually need here. Engineer comment, estimated cost and estimated cost euro. These 3 are part of the engineer scenario, which is not on this screen. That's when the ticket has already been assigned to someone. So these 3 we don't need. 3 dots, remove, estimated cost, remove, and estimated cost euro, remove. Region we are definitely going to use. Status and status reason are two default fields in Dataverse, which we don't use. We have the ticket status field for that exact purpose. So status and status reason can also just be removed like this. And the main thing that is now missing is my customer field. So if I click add field, I should be able, there we go, to select customer right there and then add. And this of course should be linked to our customers table on Dataverse, right? So that we have a drop down that we can just select a customer in our system to assign this ticket to. So that's all good, and all I really want to do is now move customer by dragging it to the top. As the second field, I want region, because one customer can have tickets in multiple or in different regions. So we also want to specify the region on a ticket level. And then the order is okay. I just want to give description somewhat more room. So if I go click fields to fold it and select the description card, just make this a little bit bigger and then also like this. The next thing we want to do is set our default mode from edit to new, because we will use this form to create new records, not edit existing ones. And if I go into preview mode now, and if I click customers, this is looking weird, right? But we'll fix that in a minute. If I click region, this is okay because this is set to a choice that we created on Dataverse. So this is perfect. Description is just a text field. Engineer assigned to is also just a text field, but we will auto fill that in a minute. Ticket status is also okay, although I don't know what this one is. I think it's the empty value, but I do see that I can choose the statuses that we have created on Dataverse, like created, estimated, and so on. So I think I've set this to the none value as the default value because I see the 0 here in this last digit, but it doesn't matter because we will automatically give this status field the created status at this stage because we are literally creating a ticket. But before we do that, let's exit preview mode. And now let's go to the unvisible property for the new ticket screen. So select the screen itself and then go to unvisible, because in here we want to do a kind of reset of this form. Every time this screen becomes visible or loaded, if you will, this form should reset itself. And we can do that by having two simple functions, new form, and then in the brackets the name of the form. In my case, that's form1, close brackets. Semicolon, don't forget that because we need another function after this, and that will be reset form with, again, form1 in my case as the name of the form. Two very simple functions we're going to execute when this screen loads, just so we have an automatic reset for the form. Now let's fix a couple of things. This customer card here, if I select it, you can see that we have a little lock sign. And if I want to edit most relevant properties, I need to unlock it first. Very simple, right click, unlock. And now if I select that inner drop down here and I go to the items property, you can see that this was filled automatically. And depending on how you build your data, this might be correct. But in my case, I simply have to change this to the other data source I have, HA customers. And I can also see that on the right, I have fields here for this same drop down. It's a combo box. It's not really a drop down, it's a combo box. Click edit, and here you can say which fields or which values you actually want to see inside of the combo box. And I want to see customer number indeed, and maybe just go for, I don't know, the last name. And if I now check again in preview mode and I click this drop down, there you go. I have only 2 customers in my database. So this is correct. If I select this one, we can see cust001. I don't see that last name though for some reason. And that is of course because I am quite stupid. I was setting the search field here to whatever name you want. We're not really going to use this, to be honest. I'm just going to set layout to double. And then in here, secondary text, this is where I can change last name. And if I test it again, now I should indeed see, there we go. Customer 1 is set to Fisher, customer 2 is set to Golden. So that one is fixed. Region was already okay. We don't have to change anything there. What we do need to change are these bottom 2. This one, for example, we want to give this a default value. So again, right click, unlock, and then go to the default property. And whatever is there can just be deleted, because now we want to do another lookup. Depending on the region that is selected, we want to automatically fill this field with a certain value. because this is my Dataverse table here, and you can see that for each region there is a engineer filled in. Engineer Joe is taking care of Europe and other, and for the US region it would be engineer Sally. So basically this text value, the email address, should be automatically filled in this text field depending on which region we have selected here. And we can do that via another lookup. So select the engineer assigned to default property. So we want to say lookup, open brackets, what's the data source? Well, that's the region assignments data source, comma. And we want to check the record where the region equals data card value 7. That's this dropdown. It probably will have another name for you. So check this dropdown for the region card, what the actual name is in the tree view. That's the one that you need. Dot selected, dot value. And from that region, close the brackets, dot, we would like to have the responsible person email. Of course, now it's blank, so it doesn't fill in anything. But if I now go into preview mode, region, if I select Europe, you can see that Engineer Joe is filled in. If I select, however, US, it jumps to Engineer Sally. If I select other, it jumps back to Joe because Joe has those two regions assigned to him. So this now also works. The last thing that we want to do is set the ticket status to the default value of created, and we don't even necessarily want to show that, I guess, to the user. So ticket status card, right click, unlock. Let's go to the default value, and here I can just delete whatever is there and say HA ticket status. That's the choice that I created on Dataverse dot created. And you can see that it automatically filled it in. And now I don't want to remove it from the form because it is a required field, as you can see with the little star thingy here. But I do just want to hide it from the user. So all I can do here is when the whole card is selected, visible property on the right, switch this to off. And now if I click outside of my form, this is what the user will actually see. But since we have set it as a default value in that ticket status card, that data will actually be saved when we save the form. And we could do the same, to be honest, with this one, but let's say the call agent knows that normally this would be assigned to Engineer Joe, but I don't know, Engineer Joe is sick or whatever, and he does want to assign it to Engineer Sally. Well, they can at least have a free text field option, if you will, by just changing this if we just leave the field here. Now to actually save the data, we are going to create a little button here. Let's go to the home screen, take this button and say Control C, back to the new ticket screen, Control V, move it to here somewhere. And we could even leave the text as create new ticket because that's exactly what should happen. And then the on select code, of course, we're not going to navigate. We are going to do the saving of the form. Now I did notice something weird when I was trying all of this out. So I'm going to do something probably rather unexpected. Instead of just saying, let's get rid of this navigate. Instead of just saying submit form and then form 1 in my case, this would probably be the line of code that we need. I am first going to also set a couple of variables. So on top here, I'm going to start with set var engineer, comma, and I simply want to have whatever is filled in here, which is the data card value 3. Let's go back to the set data card value 3 dot text. There we go. That's the first variable that I want to set. The second one is var customer name, comma, and that is, of course, if I make this a little smaller, whatever is selected here, the actual name of the customer. So this will be data card value 11 in my case. Data card value 11 dot selected dot last name. Make this bigger again. And the next one and last one, var ticket description, comma, which is of course the value whatever is filled in here. And that is data card value 1. So data card value 1 dot text. Don't forget the semicolons behind all of these first 3 lines of code. And as you might have guessed, we are going to use these three variables when we call that flow as those input parameters. Now, this is just step one because this will eventually push the data from this form to our Dataverse ticket table. But on the form itself, we now have two options. We can go to the form and then go to the on success. Let's start with the on failure. The code that we put in the on failure on the form only executes when something went wrong, when the data could not be saved, and error handling will be an entire separate training by itself. So we are, as always, going to keep it extremely simple by just notifying the user something went wrong with saving your data. Please contact IT, comma, notification type error, comma, 2000, which is 2000 milliseconds or 2 seconds. So this error type notification will stay on screen for 2 seconds. And that is all we're going to do here. Again, don't take this as good best practice on error handling, but I just want to keep it simple. The happy flow scenario, of course, is in the on success property. Delete false, which is the same as do nothing, but we want to do something, all right? And we're going to do a couple of things, because when this point is reached in code, this means that our data was in fact successfully saved. So what I'm going to do is simply, first of all, navigate to the home screen. Boom. Then on the home screen, I want to trigger our flow. But before we do that, let's just notify the user that the data was actually saved, right? So let's go notify. And then in double quotes, your ticket was saved with ticket number space, then the ampersand to glue a couple of pieces of text together. And we can now just refer to form1 dot last submit dot ticket number, because we only have this data when the data was actually saved. And Dataverse creates the ticket number when the record is being created and then kind of gives it back to the app as an answer saying, hey, my data was created and here is a copy of whatever I created. And that copy we can access by using form1.lastSubmit. And then whatever field we need. In our case, we need the ticket number. So that's it for the actual notification, comma, we want to do this as a success notification or a green bar, comma, let's go for 3 seconds, 3000 milliseconds, close the bracket. That's the second thing we want to do, and then we want to call our send email flow. Now to do that, we first have to add the flow to the app. Before we do that, let's maybe save our app. I see that my saving icon is grayed out, but I can do Control S as kind of a plan B to save your progress. And now let's first go to the 3 dots here. Let's hover over it and say Power Automate, and then you can create a flow from here, but we have already created ours. So all we have to do is go add flow, and I can already see it here. Mainly because I have created this flow in the same solution that I am creating my app in. So all I can do is just click HA new ticket send email flow here. By the way, if you ever need to do any changes after this to your flow and then come back to your app, you might want to do the refreshing here. We don't need that, this is okay for us, but I can now go back to my tree view and to the onSuccess property on my form, and as a next line of code, so semicolon, don't forget that. And now I want to call this flow, and the result of the flow, that output parameter success that we added, I want to capture that in a variable in my app. So I can say set var flow success, for example, comma, and now I can use the name of my flow. There we go, HA new ticket send email flow dot run. That's the one that I need. And I can now see that I have those 4 input parameters that we programmed when we developed our flow. The first one it needs is the engineer email, and I have put that in a variable. So I can now very easily say var engineer, that was the engineer email that I saved in my variable. I can always double check that in my button here. These are the ones that I need: var engineer, var customer name, and var ticket description. So let's go back to the form and to the onSuccess property. So first one is var engineer, comma. The second one is customer name, var customer name. The third one is the ticket description, var ticket description. And the last one is somewhat special because that's the ticket number. Well, I can use this exact same value as the ticket number, right? Comma, that one. And now I just close the brackets and then say dot success and close the final bracket. So from the run, which is this part of the code, this is the actual run of the flow, and this is the success output parameter. That value I want to put in the var flow success variable inside of my app. And since we now have that outcome, we could do one more thing. So semicolon, if var flow success is not equal or is different from true, if it's not equal to true, then I want to also notify the user that something went wrong while sending that email. Something went wrong while sending the email to the engineer. Engineer, please inform IT about this. That's the notification, comma, notification type error, and let's go for 2 seconds being 2000 milliseconds. And it just needs another bracket. So a very simple if statement. If this is not true, the outcome of that flow, then we want to alert the user that something went wrong. And this is kind of dirty because normally true or false is like a Boolean value, I know, but again, I don't want to overcomplicate things by doing it like this. And now we can test it. If I save my app once again, and I'm going to go to my other Power Apps screen and I'm going to open up the ticket table, which normally I guess is still empty. Yes, it is. Perfect. Okay, so let's leave this one open. And now I can just, in my editor, do some testing by going to preview. Let's start from the home screen, right? So I am now a call agent. I can say, okay, create new ticket because customer 1 has called me and I want to log a ticket. This was a ticket for the region US, which should automatically fill this. I could now change this to Joe if I want to, but I'm not going to. And the ticket description is there was something wrong with the, I don't know, Chicago branch network. And now I can click create new ticket. So I did get an error. I didn't really get the chance to read it properly, but I'll get back to it in a minute. But it moved to the home screen and I can now go to my ticket table and do a refresh here. And normally we should see that there is one ticket now created, assigned to customer 1. There was something wrong with the Chicago branch network. The other fields you can't really see here. So let me quickly rearrange some stuff. Oh, and I already found the cause of the error because ticket number was not filled in by Dataverse automatically when this was created. So I'm going to figure out why and then I'll get back to you. So for some reason, this was still set to single line of text and it should have been set to auto number. So let me quickly fix this. String prefixed number. This should be ticket. Minimal number of digits is 5 and ticket seed value 1. There we go. Save, and I deleted the record that the app just created. So I'm going to do the exact same test again and then hopefully we should see a proper record in this table and the email should also be sent. Because the reason why the flow failed was because this ticket number field was empty, of course, and the flow can't handle that because we set it as a required input parameter. So create new ticket, customer, let's go for the same customer, region US, which should be engineer Sally. The Chicago branch has network issues. There we go. Create new ticket. There we go. And I don't get an error. My ticket was saved with ticket number ticket 00001 and no errors on sending the email. So first of all, let's go to Dataverse and refresh. And this is the record that I was expecting initially. Ticket number has been filled, customer is filled, the Chicago branch has network issues, engineer Sally is the engineer assigned to, and the ticket status was also automatically set to created. Now I'm not going to bother logging in with engineer Sally to see if they have gotten an email. What I am going to do is go to my email address, the admin user, because I have sent that email, right? Since I tested it with the app, my user being logged in, I can go to my sent items and I can see that I have sent this one, new ticket assigned to you, to engineer Sally, with, of course, the proper information. And just to verify, if I go back to Power Apps and to my flow, Cloud Flows, and then the name, and the failed flow run wasn't even a flow run. The flow wasn't even triggered, which is good, I guess, but this is the one that I wanted to see. 1 minute ago, in fact, my flow succeeded, which of course sends the email. Alright, so we're done with the create new ticket screen. One last screen to go, that's view my tickets. So exit preview mode, and let's now focus on the my tickets screen. So this is the screen for the engineers, right? So on the left side, we're just gonna have a little overview of the tickets that are assigned to them. And on the right will be for the ticket that they select in that overview, the ticket details. In the form here on the right, they will be able to enter some data on that ticket, and of course there will also be a button to save the update. So let's start with the gallery. On the My Tickets screen, insert gallery, and I'm going to start from a blank vertical gallery. And we are again going to select HA tickets as its data source. All right, let's move the gallery. If I can select it at least somewhat like this is okay. The items property is set to HA tickets now, which is not really what I want. I only want to see the tickets that are assigned to me as the logged in engineer. So we are going to say filter HA tickets, comma, where the engineer assigned to equals user dot email. And just to be able to properly test it, I am going to go to my ticket table, which is right here, and I am going to change this to my admin user email. There we go. So eventually now I should see this ticket in my gallery. And inside of the gallery, let's just add a label here. So click the pencil and then say insert text label, and let's make this somewhat bigger like that. And in the text property, I want to combine a couple of things. So let's go for the ampersand and then a dash like this, and then also say this item dot customer dot last name, for example. And you can basically add here whatever you would like to see in the gallery, but I'm just going to keep it like this. Let's move this to the top of the gallery's element here, and let's make the element itself somewhat smaller. I'm going to create a little room here on the left side of this label, because I'm going to insert a rectangle here. And of course, I'm going to make this way smaller, like something like this. And with the arrow keys, while I have it selected, I can kind of move it to here where I would like to see it. Because this little rectangle, the color at least of the rectangle, is going to indicate the status of the ticket. And it's really easy to do that. If I have the rectangle selected, I can go to the fill color, and I can now use what is called a switch statement. Being, and I know this looks technical, but bear with me. Switch, open the brackets, the brackets even, then say this item dot ticket status. That's the value that I kind of want to check on which value it actually has, comma, and you can immediately see what happens. I only have one ticket, and in fact, that is the ticket that is set to ticket status created. That is why this is now red. And one more visual thing that I would like to do, or maybe let's first of all make this text a little bit bigger. Let's say 20. And then I want the entire template to have a very gentle background color when I have selected a certain element in here. So what I can do is, if you select the entire gallery and then go to the template fill property, remove whatever is there and say if this item dot is selected, comma, RGBA, let's go for 0.2, which is kind of a almost transparent black, comma, if it's not selected, it can just be colored.transparent, close the brackets. And you can immediately see, since we only have one ticket in our gallery, that's automatically selected and you can see what happens. And maybe let's even go for 0.1. There we go. Beautiful. Now, just like we had the form in the previous screen, we also want an auto refresh on this gallery when this screen becomes visible. So I'm going to hold my formula bar and then go to the My Tickets screen to the On Visible property and do a refresh here of the HA Tickets data source, because this is the data that is shown in this gallery. So that means, for example, if I go to this data source in the actual Dataverse table and I change this status from created to anything in between, so for example estimated, right, this is automatically saved, but in my app I don't have an auto update. If I go to preview mode and I go back to the home screen, for example, and back to that screen, which triggers that refresh code that we just put in, you can see that this is now yellow. So anytime this screen is now loaded, we get an automatic data refresh by doing this simple function in the onVisible property. Alright, and that's it for the gallery. Let's go to the form on the right side of this screen. So make sure you are no longer editing the gallery or whatever, so maybe just select the screen first and then go Insert, Edit Form. And once again, we are going to select HA Tickets right there. And once this is loaded, move the form, make it smaller, somewhat like this, and then move the form to this side of your screen. Leave some room at the bottom here for a save button. So first of all, let's do the same thing as we did in the previous screen, and that is to define the fields that we actually want to see on the form. So columns can go to 1 for starters, and then let's click Fields, because I only want to see a couple of fields here. Let's start with ticket number by dragging it to the top of the list. We can leave description. We don't need engineer assigned to, because if they see it here, it is assigned to them. So this one can just be removed. We definitely need engineer comment and these two estimated costs fields. I don't really care about region for this scenario, so let's go remove that one. And status and status reason we also definitely want to remove and remove. And let's leave ticket status, obviously, because that is a field they could eventually change and want to save to the database here. Now we might get into a little pickle as far as room goes, but what we could do is just make this somewhat bigger. There we go. We'll just have a very small save button, but that's okay. I can still move the form up a little bit like this. Perfect. This one should actually show the ticket data from the selected ticket in this gallery. So select the form and go to the item property, which by default is empty, and set this to the name of your gallery, which in my case is gallery 1. Select it, and you will automatically see what happens. Because my ticket 1 is selected here, I can see that this is filled in, and the ticket status is also filled in to estimated, which is the ticket status that I set in a minute ago. These fields, of course, are empty because they are empty in the database as well. So this all makes perfect sense. Now, I don't want the engineer to be able to change this one. So what I can do is select the ticket number, right click and unlock if you haven't already. And then just click the inner card and then go to the display mode property. And instead of parent.displayMode, set this to displaymode.view, which will look like this. So the engineer can still see the ticket number, but they won't be able to edit it. Description, you could argue, do they need to edit the description because they have their own engineer comment field here? I'm just going to leave it as it is. Engineer comment is also fine. This is a free text field for them to fill out, so perfectly fine. We don't need to change anything there. What we could change is to make sure that we have a space in this label. So let's select the label here, right click and then unlock, and the text will be in double quotes, engineer comment. And now we have two fields that are actually linked to each other, because the estimated cost field is a field that we also want the engineer to actually fill in. But this one, estimated cost euro, is one that we want to calculate in the app by using on SharePoint this currency exchange rates list. Because every customer in my database has a preferred currency. There we go. Customer 1, customer 2, desired currency. I said preferred, it's desired currency, US dollars or euro. So for example, if I have a ticket that is on customer 1, their desired currency is dollar. So that means this cost here will be in that currency. At least that's the assumption that we're now making, okay? So what we can do is in this label, right-click, unlock. I don't think we have to unlock it even, but let's just do that. Go to the text property of that label and say estimated cost. And now we can look for a link to that desired currency value for the customer on this ticket. So, and this item dot customer dot desired currency. And we just need a space in between these double quotes. There we go. So this will be dynamic. If my customer would have another currency than US dollar, this would change automatically to that correct currency. And now, of course, the trick is whatever the engineer fills in this field, that's when we want to trigger that calculation to go from, in this case, dollar to euro, and automatically fill in the euro cost in this field without the engineer being able to adjust that value. First of all, let's change this label as well. Unlock, and let's say in double quotes, estimated cost in euro. This will always be euro or euro. And this will look kind of tricky, I know, but bear with me. So on this inner card, or you know what, we could choose the outer card and then just go to the default property, because in here I have to define which value I automatically want to give to this card. And I want to make this very dynamic. If this field is still empty, I also want this one to be empty. I don't want any like zero calculations or stuff like that. So this field is called, let me quickly check, data card value 16 in my case. So I can say if data card value, let me scroll down, 16 is empty. Since these are text fields, you can check it like this. Sometimes you might need to do some workarounds to properly code this, but in our case, this should work. If that card is empty, comma, I also want this card to be empty. Makes sense, right? But if it is not empty, so this is the else scenario, this is where I want to do that calculation. In that case, I can say take whatever data card value 16 has as a text and multiply it by the correct value in this list. For example, in my case, it would have to get this record and then this value in the euro per unit column. So I need to do a lookup here because I first need to get the correct record in that data source. The data source is called currency exchange rates. I want to look up the record in that data source that has the currency equal to this item dot customer dot desired currency. Close the brackets, and from that record I need the euro per unit value. Close the final brackets. And one thing I forgot, and that is to put the dot text after that. So now we should be able to test this out. Let me just go to preview mode and type in, let's start with something really simple, 1. And it took a couple of seconds, but here you can see that this 0.907981 0.9079, and this is because it cut off here on SharePoint to 5 characters, but this is in fact, of course, this value. If I change it to 100, obviously this also goes times 100, so you can see that this actually now works. Now, obviously, we don't want this to be an editable field for the engineer, so what we can do if I exit preview mode is just go to this inner card, right-click, I already unlocked it, so we don't have to do that again. But in this inner card, go to the display mode and set this to display mode.view again, just the same as we had for the ticket number. We want the engineer to see this, but we don't want to give them the option to actually manipulate this value. We do want them to change if they want to the ticket status, so we can leave this as it is. The only thing I'm going to change, right-click unlock, is the ticket status label. Set this to ticket status just to have that space in there as well. And that is it for our form. The only thing we now have to do, of course, is to make sure that if they fill this in, they have a way to save this update. And we're going to do that with a simple button. So let's go to our home screen maybe and click this button and Control C, my tickets screen, Control V, And let's drag it all the way to the bottom. And I just have to make it really small because I don't have that much space. But you can rearrange this however you would like. And I'm gonna double click the button and just say update ticket as the text. And the only thing that I'm going to do on this button, at least on the on select for this button, is I'm not gonna navigate. I am just going to say submit form, and this will be form 2 in my case. There we go. So whatever data at that point is filled in the form, I want to submit it, I want to save it to Dataverse. And just like before, the important second step when working with forms, and especially at the saving action, if you will, is to go to the form itself. So I'm going to select form 2, go to the, let's start with the on failure again, and just keep it very simple. Say notify, in double quotes, something went wrong when saving your update, please contact IT support, comma, notification type error, comma, 2000 milliseconds, close brackets. And the happy flow, of course, is the on success property. We're going to do a couple of things again. First of all, we're going to say notify, in double quotes, your ticket was updated, comma, notification type dot success, comma, maybe 3 seconds. That's the first thing we want to do. And I forgot the capital S here. You can see how sensitive it is. There we go, success. Let's make the formula bar a little bit bigger because we need 2 more lines of code. So semicolon, don't forget that one here. The second thing I want to do is to refresh the data source, because let's say we update our ticket status. As soon as we click this, we would like to see that reflected in our gallery as well. So refresh HA tickets, semicolon. And the last thing we want to do is reset this form, because the things that we have filled in can be reset to their default values should we select another ticket here in the gallery. So reset form 2. Those are the 3 things that I want to do whenever a ticket is updated. And we can immediately test it out because, first of all, let's save our app. There we go. Let's fold our formula bar and let's just go into preview mode. Let's start at the home screen. So I am now in engineer, logging into my app. Okay. I can go to view my tickets. I can only select one, which is by default already selected as well. That's why you see this thing already preloaded. And you can see that the value that I filled in a minute, the 100, is still there. What we could do to kind of avoid that is on the on visible for our screen. So select my tickets screen, on visible property. We're not just going to do the data refresh. We're going to say semicolon. And as a second line of code, we're also going to do that reset form 2. Just to make sure that if we enter this screen that we start with a properly cleared out form, if that makes sense. So now let's test the exact same thing. Preview mode, let's go to the home screen, view my tickets, and I can now see that my form reset, which is good. So I can now just select my ticket 1. Let's say I am now working on this ticket. And I think it will cost $500 automatically fills in my euro value here. Ticket status, let's set this to, you know what, just to see the change, let's set it to completed. And then we can change our comment to, I am done working on this ticket. Everything was fine and the customer is super happy. Update ticket. And a couple of things happened. We saw the green notification, which is awesome, of course. You can see that this changed to green because it's now completed as a ticket status. And just to verify it on Dataverse as well, let's go to the ticket table and look for that ticket 1. And I can just add my engineer comment here and those 2 estimated costs fields. So you can actually see that ticket 1 is first of all now set to ticket status completed, and I am done working on this ticket, and my estimated cost fields are also both filled. First of all, let me exit preview mode, and if you haven't saved already, save it first and then also click publish, because this will make sure, publish this version, that the last saved version is also published, meaning that other users that actually use the app also now get the latest version when they use it. After you have done that, just click back here and then leave. And this takes you back to your solution, of course. And now we can just go 3 dots, share. And they recently changed this, and I'm not the biggest fan, but let's say I want to share the app with both of my engineers. I can just type in engineer here, and I can already see if I type it correctly. I can share it with engineer Sally and engineer Joe. There we go. I can say, are they just users or are they co-owners of the app? In my case, just users, of course. Then I can also click share. There we go, and they have now received an email with the link in it. Now, the one thing that I really don't like about this new sharing window is, let me show you the old one. If I go share again, and then here, luckily they have added the option use classic sharing. If I click this is just, in my humble opinion, somewhat better, because I can now, for example, select engineer Joe. And since I am using Dataverse, we have to give them a security role first. Otherwise, they will not be able to properly use the app. Now, Dataverse security is a whole video on itself, which I am not going to include in this series. There is a link in the video description if you want more info on that. It is quite important, I know, but again, I don't want to go into too much of those details. And just to make it work, I could just say, okay, you know what? You are both. I can select them both, I think. Nope, you have to do them one by one. You are a system customizer and the basic user, which basically means they have access to all the data on Dataverse, at least for the tables that I have used here in my app. And I can then just say share. I can do the same thing for engineer Sally, basic user, system customizer, and then I can click share again. And now both of these engineers will have proper access to the app. Again, I know it's not best practice to just give them full-blown access to Dataverse as well. Just know that you can in fact separate, let's call it app permissions versus data permissions, but entirely different topic for another time. Let me know down in the comments if that is something you would like to see a video on as well. For now, let me just open my app in play mode, and I can do that by clicking the 3 dots again and then go play. This now opens up the last published version. This is also normal the first time you open the app, so just click allow. I'm still logged in as the admin user, so I can do everything basically. Also, because we haven't really used our role in the clickability of these buttons. What I mean by that is we have set the var user role in the onStart code, right? To a certain role. In my case, that would be this role here, being user roles administrator. What you could do, we haven't done that, but what you could do is in the display mode for example, this create new ticket button, you could set this to only if my var user role equals call agent, I want to have this as a clickable button, so display mode dot edit. If it is any other value than call agent, I want to have display mode dot disable. I'll show you the code on the screen right now because I kind of forgot to do that. You could add this as an extra functionality to your buttons. We haven't done that, so I can click anything I want. Let's go create new ticket. Let's just imagine that I am a call agent now. For the same customer, I'm going to go for US. And say now the New York branch has some issues or whatever. Automatically engineer Sally popped up because I chose US here. Create new ticket. Ticket 002 is created. Let's create another one for another customer in the other region, which would be engineer Joe. This customer has other issues. Create new ticket. So now we have 3 tickets. Of course, when I, as the admin user, click view my tickets, I only see that first one because that's the only one assigned to me. So again, just for proper testing, I'm going to go to my table, HA ticket. I'm going to refresh. So we should see 3 records. There we go. Ticket 1, 2, 3 with these customers. And of course, I'm going to change these 2 values again to my admin user. So I see all 3 of these tickets in my app, so bear with me. There we go, data saved. If I go back to my app and back to the home screen and view my tickets, the data is refreshed, remember, when we enter this screen. So I can now see all 3 of these tickets, and I can, for example, take this ticket to say, I am working on this, estimated cost 250, and this will be a ongoing ticket, update ticket. You can see that this jumped to yellow, my ticket was updated. Now let's go to this one, because this one has the customer 2 assigned to it, or is assigned to customer 2. And customer 2 has the euro as its desired currency, which you can already see right here, which is fine, because if I now type in 1000, this is just 1000 times 1, because it gets the correct value from here. Just to show you that this also makes sense. And that is it, guys, for our Canvas app. As I have told you before, I definitely know that some things in the videos that we do, data related, security related, best practice related, you name it, are not waterproof and can be tackled in probably better ways. Trust me, I know that. But the main purpose of this entire series is not to do that technical deep dive, as I have told you before, into each and every one of these tools. Instead, my goal here is to show you how these different components within the Power Platform can work together as one in an hyperautomation solution. That being said, if you have any ideas on, for example, Power Apps or Canvas apps in particular, let me know down in the comment section so we can have a proper overview of what you guys want for future videos. Okay, first up, there are a lot of possibilities when it comes to model-driven apps. We, as always, are going to keep it pretty simple. Our only goal here is to give our administrator user a quick and easy to access app to get an overview of all the created tickets in our system. Since they are an admin, we are also going to make sure that they can actually edit the ticket data. Model-driven apps are super data-focused and are less graphically enhanced, if you will, than, for example, Canvas apps. So in other words, it might not look as pretty as the average Canvas app, but it is a very simple step-by-step process to set it up. So let's just dive right in. In my solution, I am going to go to All and then say New App, Model-driven App. And let's give this the name. I'm going to go with my prefix as always, and then say Ticket Management App. Create. And this is what the model-driven app designer looks like. All we are going to do is say add page and then say Dataverse table, because we can actually link a model-driven app directly to Dataverse data pretty easily. And in here, we of course have to find our ticket table. So in my case, I'm going to go to HA ticket, select that one, and then just say add. And you can see that a couple of things automatically happened. In my navigation, there was a new group added, which I'm going to rename on the top right here to Ticket Management. And then I'm going to select this thing here, the HA_tickets view, because I want to edit this one. I just want to say on the right here, new view, and the name of this new view will be Active Support Tickets. We can leave this ticked and then click create. I'm not sure what I should have saved first. I'm just gonna go YOLO and click OK. And this is where we can now define the view that we would like to show to our user. And we can very easily just add columns here. For example, the ticket number is already there as a column. We can say plus view column and then customer, for example. Let's just add a couple more columns. Description can also go in here. So you can drag and drop from the left if you want to. Maybe the assigned to engineer. Let's go for the estimated cost in euro. Obviously the ticket status. And you know what? Let's use a default field created on, just to have the created on date in there as well. You can make this wider or smaller if it will let me at least. There we go. Maybe let's make the description somewhat wider. Perfect. And this would now, of course, show me all the tickets. But in this particular view, I only want to see the ongoing, the active tickets, so not the completed ones. So what I can do is go to the filters here on the right where it says no filters are present. I can say edit filters. And here I can just say add a row of the filter where my ticket status does not equal completed. And you can see how easy this is because it is all very data oriented. This is linked to the choices that are in that ticket status field. So that makes it very, very easy to set up things like this. So I want to see all the tickets where ticket status does not equal completed. Okay. Now I can see that ticket 1 disappeared because that is a completed ticket, of course. And just to make sure that they are sorted on ticket number, which I think by default they are, I can always go here and say sort by ticket number. This will also be saved as part of this view. You can add more fields if you want to. I'm just going to leave it at this and say save and publish on the top right. So this is one view that I want to see, but I also want to have an overview as an admin of the completed tickets. So what I can do once that this is done saving, there we go, I can simply say, you know what, save as, and instead of having the active support tickets name that I had, I can just say completed support tickets, save. And the only thing that I want to do is, first of all, since they are already completed, I want to sort them maybe not by ticket number, but by, I don't know, let's go for the estimated cost so that we see the most expensive tickets at the top. And we should probably revert the sort. There we go, by clicking it again here. Now I can see that my estimated cost is on top. And I want to change my filter, of course, to edit filters when my ticket status equals completed instead of does not equal. Okay. And now I can only see ticket 1 because that has the ticket status of completed. Save and publish as my second view. Alright, that is also done. We can now go back to our actual app by clicking this back button. And if I now select my view here and select this drop down, I can now no longer see those two default views being active tickets and inactive tickets. I can also see the two views that I have created. And I would like to delete the default ones. You can do that by just going to here, 3 dots, remove for this one, got it. Inactive, that's also a default one, remove. And you can always re-add them later since they are now in this list. You can always go 3 dots and add. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go save. And you can see that nothing really changed because I can still see my 4 views here, but that's okay. In the published version of the app, we will only be able to see the 2 views that we have specified here. And for that reason, I am also going to do save and publish. So same thing as with Canvas apps, saving and publishing are 2 separate things. Because now you actually saw that something automatically refreshed. And if I now see here, well, there you go. And my active support tickets view got set to the default, which is also fine with me. Now also note that these are blue texts, right? For example, if I click on customer 1 here, it automatically drills down into that data for customer. Now we haven't set any of that up, so that's why I don't really see anything spectacular, but we will change some of that in a minute as well. Let's just go back to our view by clicking the view. And let's do the same thing for the ticket. If I click on my ticket number, you can see that I have a very similar form here. And of course, this is something that we want to specify because yes, I can now as an admin change data here, but I barely see any relevant fields. And that's what we want to change because you can see as soon as I clicked that ticket number, it also jumped to this HA tickets form, which was also created by default. So if I click this little pencil, you see that we come into a similar designer view, if you will, that we also had before when we were editing our views. And this is where we can now specify how we would like to see that form in our app. Now we can add fields here directly, but we can also add a little thing called components. Let me close this one. And then, for example, I would like to have a 3-column section. So you can just type in here and say 3-column section and drag it onto that middle part. New section was added. And if I go to the right, I can rename this to ticket info, for example. And I want to move this ticket number to this section. Well, guess what? Drag and drop into the section. There we go. And I don't need this owner field. This is something Dataverse related. So I'm just going to say hide. Select the field owner and say hide. Got it. And you can always toggle hidden fields in your editor on and off by using this little toggle at the bottom. And this whole thing is the general section. So I'm just going to rename this to ticket status. Also give it this name, ticket status, maybe without the space. I'm not going to hide the label. There we go. And now I can just drag and drop this one underneath here because I want to see ticket info first. Let's just add a couple of fields here. What would we like to see? Maybe the customer. So if I go to my fields tab, I can just say, okay, customer, drag to this, and it automatically should, there we go, put it in because this is a 3-column section that we added. So it should add it as the second column. And maybe as a third and final ticket info related field, I want to see that estimated cost in euro and put it there, please. There we go. We could also add the description maybe in between these two things or add it here. Perfectly fine with me as well. Now for the ticket status, I want to see maybe the created on. That's always nice to have. I want to have the actual ticket status, which I just clicked on and it automatically added it there, which is good. And let's also add the engineer assigned to this part. And as a final part here, I would like some information about the customer. So maybe let's just add a 1-column section on the bottom here. Rename this to customer info. And now you can see a little thing called Quick View. And this is super handy. If I drag Quick View into that customer info section, it might take a while to load, but this is just an immediate automatic link between data sources because in our ticket table, we have a couple of so-called lookup fields, one of which being customer. If I select that one, it automatically jumps to the correct table, which in my case is HA customer. And now I can from that table select a form. Of course, we haven't created any forms there, so all I can really do is select the information form, and we will do that and edit that form in a minute. So look up from my customer field on my ticket table, and from that related table being HA customer, I want to see the information form done. And you can see that in my case, it just shows the very default form, which is just the customer number and again the owner. But we will fix that in a minute. For now, let's just save and publish. There we go, save and published. Once again, guys, know that there are a lot of options here that you can add tabs to this. You can see the amount of components that you can add here, so feel free to check that out. I'm going to, as always, keep it as simple as possible. This is it for me. If I now go back with the back button to the actual app, I can see that I now still have my tickets view, the view that we made, and my tickets form, which is the form that we literally just updated. But now let's go back to our solution by clicking back. And if I go to my customer table and click this arrow and then forms, I can see that I have a couple of different forms here, which are all called information, but I can see that the form type that I need is that quick view form that we added in our ticket form. And if I hit the 3 dots and then say edit, it gets me into that similar model-driven app editor. And in here, I can now customize this form. And just to keep the changes pretty simple, first of all, I'm going to remove the owner. I'm not going to remove it. I'm going to hide it again. And then I'm just going to add a couple of metadata fields for our customer. So first name, let's go from there. Last name, email, phone, and maybe the desired currency, because why not? So very simple change, save and publish. And if I now go back with the back button and go back to my model-driven app that I created, being Ticket Management App, 3 dots, edit. And if I now go back to my form, you can see that automatically, because I am using that quick view form from the customer table, this is also now updated. So we are basically done with our app. The final thing I'm going to do is save and publish on the top right. And if I now go back to my solution again, and instead of saying edit, I'm going to say play this time. This will actually open up my ticket management app. And you can see that it just has that view in it here on the left side. So I can choose the views that we created, right? I can go to completed or to active. But if I click a ticket number, it automatically goes to that form that we updated, which is exactly what I want to see here. And you can see that the bottom part here, in fact, has the customer 01 info, because that is the customer related to this ticket. If I actually click this, of course, this will get me into another form, which is not the quick view form. If you want to see something else here, well, you guessed it, you just have to update that form on the customer table. Now, a final side note on this, again regarding security. Previously, when I shared my Canvas app, I basically gave those two engineers administrator rights to those tables on Dataverse. And that also means if I click the three dots for my model-driven app and I click share, they are automatically here with the system customizer role. So if they would have the link to this app, they can just access it just like the administrator user can. Which of course is not what we want, and the way to solve this would be to create some custom Dataverse security roles, for example, to really separate data permissions versus app permissions. As I've mentioned before, I'm not going to do that because that's an entire video on itself, but if you want more information on that important topic, I'm not going to lie, it is important. There is a link down in the video description. Check it out. And breathe. Whoa. So we covered a lot of ground today, guys. Good job for still being here. Not only do we now have a fully automated customer creation system, which we did in the previous episode, we have now also developed some super useful supporting apps, if you will, in our hyperautomation solution. But are we done? Nah. In the next episode, we are yet again going to step it up a notch to get to the next level because we will create an actual chatbot. Copilot Studio is one of the newer and most improved tools in the recent history of the Power Platform, so I am super excited to check that out in the next episode with you. But for now, thank you so much for watching this episode. I will see you in the next one. Take care.